Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires has a substantial holding in real estate? What that means to you is if you're not investing in real estate and educating and learning yourselves on the tips and ways to make money in real estate, you're behind the 8 ball. But don't worry, I'm here to help. My name is Jerome Love, and I've been investing in real estate for over 25 years. I have a substantial holdings in real estate. I've built houses, I've remodeled houses for other people, and real estate has put me in a position where I can retire before the age of 40. And I want to help you do the same. So in this final class of our 5-part masterclass series, it's the business plan. And we're going to talk about writing a plan to help you be a success. If you're going to be a success at anything, you got to have a plan. The business plan is kind of like a roadmap or navigation in today's language. It will help you to get to the destination that you desire. So you got to have that business plan, and we're going to show you how to structure it properly. But before we get into today's course, click the like, subscribe, and if you want to book a call, there's a link in the bio. And for sure, get a copy of our book, Closing the Wealth Gap. There's also a link in the description. Until then, enjoy today's class. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Masterclass. My name is Jerome D. Love, and today we're going to be talking about the business plan. I'm really excited about the Black Money Tree Wealth Development Strategy, and in particular, this course. You see, when you look at the African American and the Black community, there are a lot of negative statistics, whether it be high school dropout rates, whether it be prison populations, and they all have one commonality, and that's money. It's income. When you don't have money, you're less likely to have insurance, so then you're more likely to suffer disproportionately from health issues. So the goal of the Black Money Tree is to create and build wealth within the Black community to put money in your pocket, which will help you to better take care of you, your network, your family. And we believe that that's the foundation of building a strong community, is to have resources and the assets to do so. You know, a lot of times we sit back and we wait and we think the government or someone else gonna bail us out and save us. But the reality is that's not the case. We need to be empowered to change our own destinies. Now, the Black Money Tree advocates wealth building in 2 areas: entrepreneurship and real estate investments. Now, the Black Money Tree is based upon my philosophies and my experiences because I'm the founder, if you will. And I have been in real estate for almost 25 years. I've also been in business since I was 19 years old. But also, when you look at the most wealthy people in our nation, in this world, the billionaires and the multimillionaires, they all, for the most part, are entrepreneurs. They have businesses, and most of which have heavy investments in the area of real estate. So my goal is to share with you what I've learned throughout my 25 years of entrepreneurship and real estate investing, because I believe that it can help you to create your wealth, to build your wealth so that you can and then build your community. So today's lesson is going to be on the business plan. Now, before we really get started here, I just want to say, you know, it's kind of cliche, but if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So most of the things that I share in the Black Money Tree Wealth Development System are things that I know personally. So it's not like I just read this in a book somewhere. It's things that I've experienced because I made a whole bunch of mistakes. But you get the opportunity to learn from my mistakes so that you can have a more successful path than I have. So, like I say, I started my first business when I was 19 years old. It was actually a clothing line called Gugog's Hip Hop Apparel. I was in college. I started out with 2 to 3 basic t-shirts. I soon expanded to 3 or 4 different types of t-shirts, women's tank tops. I had hats. I had all kinds of things. So things was going pretty well for me, but I was never really seeming to have any extra money in my pocket. You see, and I was learning very quickly about cash flow in business, because every time I got money, I had to use that money to buy more inventory. And then when I would sell more shirts, I would take that money to buy more inventory. So I never really had any money to keep for myself. So I thought, man, I need to do bigger shows so I can sell more product, reduce my overall product costs. But I decided the show that I decided to do was one called the Magic Show. It's the largest apparel show in the world, and it was a pretty substantial investment, at least for me at that point in time. It was going to cost me about $16,000, $17,000. Now, the reason I'm sharing this story with you is in order to get that $16,000, $17,000, what did I do? I went to an organization. It was called the Austin CDC. I was in Austin, Texas at the time. And they said that they had programs that would help entrepreneurs. So I pitched my business to them. They liked the idea. And the first time I heard the word business plan was in that meeting. They say, this is a great idea. We love it. Let us see your business plan, and then we'll let you know what we can do. Now, I didn't know what a business plan was, so I just kind of smoothed that over. I said, hey, well, we're putting up the finishing touches on it. Let me get back to you next week. I immediately left that meeting and I called one of my fraternity brothers. His name was Alejandro Vasquez. He owned the screen printing shop that actually made our t-shirts. So I said, Jandro, what is a business plan? And he says, Frat, you need to read this book. It's called The Portable MBA to Entrepreneurship. I got the book, read it, and it taught me about business planning. So I took a week reading the book, writing my business plan. I gave it to the Austin CDC, and they actually approved me for a $20,000 loan. So that was my introduction to business planning. Now, a business plan is very important. It's very critical. And the unfortunate thing is most of us, I don't want to say most of us, but a lot of us, when we start businesses, individuals from communities that don't have a lot of resources, we tend to operate out of passion. Now, I'm a Christian. I'm probably the most Christian person you know. But everything is not about faith. Certainly, if you're going to be a success in business, God is going to give you favor to be a success. You have to have faith and you have to believe that you're going to be successful. But you also you have to operate out of vision. But the Bible also teaches us that faith without works is dead. So when God gives us ideas and visions and dreams, he's kind of banking on common sense and common logic. So when you get that idea for your business, certainly it's important to have passion. Certainly it's important to have faith, but you also got to have a plan, because passion doesn't pay the light bills. So before I went to do the Magic Show, I went to see a guy. His name was Dr. Norman Mason. He was a wealthy real estate investor and he was a dentist. And they said he likes to help young entrepreneurs like yourself. So I went in to talk to him about my business and I explained my idea. And he said, you know what, Jerome? I really like this idea of Gogox. It's a great idea. The only problem is right now you're operating out of passion and you don't have a plan. So what did I do? I began to re-explain my idea. I assumed, man, you must have missed something. This is a brilliant idea. I'm about to make all this money. And after I re-explained my idea, he knew that I didn't have the capacity to understand what he was saying. So he said, what's the point of having access to someone like me if you're not going to listen? And then he became prophetic. He said, what's ready to happen? You're going to go to the Magic Show. You're going to lose a bunch of money. You're going to be in debt. And then you're going to come back here and have to work a real job to pay for that debt. And it's going to kill your business. And guess what happened? Exactly what he said. So once again, the things that I'm sharing in this masterclass and really in the Black Money Tree Wealth Development System are the things that I've learned from experience. So learn from my experience. You don't have to go through the heartaches and pains that I went through. So you gotta have a plan if you're gonna be successful in business. So let's get into the business plan in more detail. Now, as I said, passion without a plan is a recipe for destruction. Just know that. So what is a business plan? A business plan is a plan for how you're going to execute your business and to be profitable. It's the roadmap to where your business is going in the future and how you're going to get there. I often tell people a business plan is like a roadmap. It does not guarantee that you're going to get to your destination, but it makes the ride more comfortable. It predicts certain landmarks. You know, when I drive 100 miles, I should see this landmark or this street. So it lets you know that you're on course. That's what a good business plan is. So if you want to avoid a lot of the headaches and pains that I went through and so many entrepreneurs went through, it's very critically important that you have a business plan. Now, give you a couple cliches. I already said one. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Flying by the seat of your pants and winging it are random chance approaches that reduce the odds of your success in business. Now, I'm going to pause right here and say this. My assumption is that you want to be a success in business. That's my assumption. So understanding the statistics, I heard last time I think I read or looked at the stats, I think only 20% of most new entrepreneurs will make it past year one. And then of that 20%, half of them are out of business within 5 years. You don't want to be a part of the statistics. So how do you make sure that you're not, or reduce the chances that you're not a part of that statistic? Create a plan. Now, the business plan kind of serves two purposes. One, it helps you. It helps you to stay on track. I've also heard that it said when you write down your goals and your dreams, your visions, it's like a 75% more likely chance that it's going to come to pass. So when you write down your vision, your dreams, your goal, that's what the business plan is. It helps you to increase the chances you're going to be a success. The second reason you do a business plan is most of the time when people do business plans, they need to raise money. Every business is going to need some capital and you're going to need some money. You can go to a private investor, an equity firm, things of that nature, or you can go to a bank. But either way, they're going to want to see your plan. For them, they're giving you money. They want to ensure that they get as much of their money back and they get a return on their investment. So when you show them your business plan, it at least gives them the comfort that you thought it through. So a business plan is critically important, okay? So starting a business without a plan can be a big waste of time and money. Just know that you got to have a plan. So the business plan, what is it? A good business plan is going to answer, where am I going? How will I get there? How will I know which direction I'm going to go? And how will I navigate unfamiliar territories? So I'm going to pause on this one really quickly. What a lot of new starting entrepreneurs do, including me, we create our plans, we create our budgets based upon ideal scenarios. But the reality is nothing happens rarely, ideally, the way we always want it. So for instance, when I thought about the magic show, hey, I'm going to meet somebody from Foot Locker, maybe Macy's, and they're going to order 1 million shirts from me. So if my cost per shirt was $1, they ordered 1 million shirts, that meant I was going to have to spend $1 million, but I sold them for $15. So that meant I was going to make $14 million. That was kind of my thinking. That was my process. I never thought, what if I don't sell that 1 million shirts? What if I only sell 500,000? What if I only sell 100,000? So whatever it is you're projecting to do, it's okay. You're a salesman. That's what entrepreneurs and business people are. Project to the stars and the moons, but then back it back and say, well, what if I only hit half of that? And then what if I only hit 20% of that? So stress test it and then think through the process. If I only sell half of what I'm projecting, what will I do then? Is it still viable? When you begin to start asking yourself those critical questions, then you will be in a better position to talk with a banker, an investor, and to make a wise choice as to whether or not the business has the capacity to be a success before you invest a whole bunch of time and money that will ultimately be lost. Now, also a good business plan is going to ask, how long will it take for me to get to my destination? What will I encounter along the way? And how will I know success when I see it? So what are the components of a business plan? Now, different people may have a few other nuances here and there, but most of the business plans that I have written, these are the 5 components that they have. And like I say, different people will have different areas. There may be a few nuances here and there, but at the end of the day, these are the 5 areas. Number 1 is going to be your executive summary. Your executive summary, I was always taught, in the way I explain it, it's the business plan within the business plan. It explains the basics of your business, who you are, what you're doing, what you plan to accomplish, but it's in 2 to 3 pages. It's pretty concise. If you have a 40, 50 page business plan, your average banker, your average investor is not going to read all 40, 50 pages, at least not in the beginning, but they may read your executive summary. Now, jump ahead real quick. The number 1 area of your business plan is your financial section, because at the end of the day, the bottom line of your business is to make a profit. So most investors, most banks are going to look at their financials. If the financials look good, then they'll go back to the executive summary. I'm not going to talk too much on financials here because I'm going to talk about it a lot later, but just know the executive summary should be short, concise, and it needs to answer the who, what, when, where, and how. The next area is the management team. Now, if you're like me when I started out, I was a one-man show. I was the sales team. I was the human resources. I was the accountant. Understanding that, at least think through the process. Understand that you will have certain needs with your company, and even certain things you will be contracting out. So in your business plan under your management team, list out the roles that will be needed and write the key figures that will be handling those roles. Because the reality is, a successful business should be able to operate independent of you. But if you're the only one in the business, working the business, it's not going to be able to operate outside of you. Next is the financials. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But sales and marketing, that's how you're going to make your sales. What is the brand? What do you want people to understand and believe about your product that's going to lead to more sales? And then the product and service. This is not in any order. I would probably put products and services before sales and marketing, but the product and service is what it is you offer. The main thing that I'll say here is understand that a business is not about what you want. It's not about as much your passion. It's about what the market wants. So a good business is going to solve a problem and meet a need. So under products and services, you have to be able to explain what product or service, what problem are you solving, what need are you meeting, and how you can do it at a profit. That's what that part is. Now, the business plan should be about 3 to 5 years. Then back it back. What are you going to accomplish in the first 6 months? What are you going to accomplish in the first year? But try to project out about 3 to 5 years. Revisit the plan every year. Like I say, 9 times out of 10, everything you write in the business plan is not going to happen the way you want it. But it's okay. That's why you write the plan. You can adjust the plan. So everything changes, specifically in business. Nothing is predictable. Who knew we were going to experience a pandemic? Now what are you going to do with your business? Are you going to fold, or are you going to have to revamp? That's why you write your business plan, so that you can strategize and plan for all the various nuances that may occur. Here's a little graphic that kind of shows you what I just said. Write it down. Does it work? If it works, then do it again. If it doesn't work, then change it. Nothing wrong with that. So now, I promised you I was going to go a little bit more into the finances, and that's what I'm going to do right now, because the most important thing in business is the bottom line: profit, money. Now, I don't know how that sounds to you. That may sound kind of cold. Maybe it sounds calculated. Maybe it sounds heartless. But a business, yes, there's passion involved. But the reality is, as I said, passion does not pay the bills. Certainly you may have altruistic efforts to help the community and things of that nature, but that's not going to pay the bills. The Texas Black Expo is a nonprofit organization. We give away scholarships. We provide grants. Right now, in the midst of COVID-19, we fed almost 600,000, provided 600,000 meals to families in need. But guess what? All of that takes money. So if you're going to be able to build a better community And to be successful in business, you got to understand the bottom line is the profit and the money. And I can assure you, any bank, any investor, that's going to be what they want to know. And you need to understand the numbers back and front. Now, I know that many people that are listening to me are varying in levels. So I'm going to give you some basic information about the financial section as well as money in general. So the bottom line of every business, as I say, is profit. Profit is the amount of income your business brings in minus the expenses, okay? How much money you have left over after all is said and done. That's the bottom line. That's the profit. Income minus expenses equals net revenue, or another word for profit. And yes, that can be negative at times. So you must create a budget. A budget is an estimate of expenditures during a set period of time. So if you're starting out, you don't have any revenue, you need to say, the first 6 months, this is going to be my income, this is going to be my expenses, and then at the bottom will be your net revenue. Sometimes people will say, what's your budget? And they're pretty much just asking, what are your expenses? But for the sake of what I'm sharing right here, I would include income and expenses in that. The budget is your financial roadmap to where you're trying to go with your business. Now, what is profit? Profit is, as we said before, revenue, which is another word for income. Revenue minus expenses equals your profit, which is also called your net revenue. All right? Pretty basic, pretty simple. Now, what is income? Once again, pretty basic, pretty simple. Income is money that comes in, right? Another term for income is revenue. When you hear the term gross, that means total. So if you say gross income, gross revenue, that means total income, total revenue. And if you hear the term net, that means the difference. So if you have the net revenue, that means the income minus expenses, net revenue, which is also synonymous with profit. And yes, that can be negative at times. Now, an expense is money that comes out, something that you have to spend. Now, in terms of the financial statements and your financial section of the business plan, there are two primary financial statements that you need to have. The first is the income statement, which can also be called the profit and loss statement. There are two areas in the profit and loss statement or income statement, which is your income and expenses. Now, that may sound a lot like the budget, and the reality is, it is. But the difference is a budget, and now I'm not an accountant, I'm not a finance major, so I'm sure some finance majors out there will probably pick this apart, but for the use of this, what I'm sharing here, at the end of the day, a budget is a projection of what you're going to bring in and what you're going to spend. An income statement or a profit and loss statement is basically a recap of what you have done. So if you haven't started in business, you will put together a projected budget. That's not an income statement. You can say after year one, this is what my income statement is going to look like. But in essence, you're kind of projecting a budget. Now, if you've been in business 2 to 3 years, you can look back at last year and say, how much money did I bring in? How much money did I spend? And what is my net income? That's what an income statement is. It's also called a profit and loss statement. Now, there's typically a time period for an income statement or a profit and loss statement. So it may be from January 1st to December 31st. So here I did a sample. Let's say we did a youth camp. We have our student registrations at $5,000, sponsorship at $10,000. That's $15,000 total revenue. Expenses is $10,100. Our net revenue would be $4,900. The other statement that you should have, some people would say there's a third statement, the cash flow statement, which kind of shows when the money comes in and when the money comes out. So you can kind of predict when there might be some shortfalls in case you need some gap financing or have to go to a bank and things of that nature. But I'm going to simplify it here and just say that there are two, which is the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet, which I believe are the two most important. Now, the balance sheet shows your position on a particular day and time. So the income statement is from January 1st to December 31st or whatever the time period is. This is your financial position as of December 31st. What is the financial status and health of your organization at the close of the year, December 31st? It's going to include assets and liabilities. Assets is cash and things that could be liquidated to cash. So how much money do you have in the bank? Then you have your accounts receivable. How many people owe you money and how much is that? You should be able to liquidate that to cash. You could also include assets if you own any equipment or if you own any office buildings. Things that you could liquidate for cash would be considered an asset. Liabilities are things that you owe. So accounts payable, people you owe money to. You could also have bank loans. That would be loan. Depending upon who the accountant is, they may have long-term debt, short-term debt, but ultimately it's monies, it's liabilities.
All right. So before we get to our last point, I want to share one quick message. Did you know that 30% of people who set goals will actually accomplish those goals? The reason I'm sharing that, you've watched more than 70% of this program, which means that you're head and shoulders above the average. And I know you're serious about building your wealth in real estate. But the truth of the matter is, while there's a lot of good information that I'm providing, nothing compares to being able to pick up the phone and call someone that's been there, done that, and is willing to help you through the process. So for a limited time only, I'm going to allow you to book a consulting call with me. There's a link in the description that you can book a call with me, 1 hour, and I'll walk you through whatever it is you need. I'll answer whatever questions you have, which I believe is irreplaceable. When I started my business, I had a mentor. He helped me with whatever I need, and I wanted to be able to do the same for you. Also, get the book, Closing the Wealth Gap. This has so much more information and detailed information that I'm not able to go through to this course, but you can get it on Amazon. There's also a link in the bio or in the description below. And if you're in the Houston area, check out our own on-site, on-location prospecting. You can book me. I'll come out. I'll assess your house. I'll help you meet with the contractors. So many resources that I think would be necessary that will help you in building wealth in real estate. Now, lastly, you may be feeling a little overwhelmed and you may say, growing my wealth in real estate may be kind of far-fetched, but that's normal. I want you to check out this message from one of my top mentees, Mr. Onaje Barnes. He started out with me. He started out with one single family house and he's now on his third apartment complex. Check out his story and then we'll be right on to the next point. The one conversation I remember is we was talking about buying a house and I was saying, every time I have a kid, I'm going to buy a house and that's going to be my college fund. Yeah. You said, man, that's the same way, you know.
Yeah, that's
was
exactly how I started.
Process.
I mean, that literally was my mindset. But literally, we started from just a simple aspect of, one, we used our first home as an investment property. If you buy right up front, right? And real estate 101 is we make our money when we buy, right? That's real estate 101, right? And so for me, I wanted to use that same mentality on our first house, which we did. I got a great loan on that first house.
I remember. I was your realtor.
I remember somebody was my realtor.
Yeah.
Right. So we did buy a foreclosure, got a good deal on it, put some sweat equity into it, put some, we put some money into it. It was listed for 180. My pretty good dope realtor, he was able to negotiate 135, and I put about 35 into it. So I'm like all in for like 160, 165, somewhere around there. And within like 6 months, we had a appraisal, $240,000 appraisal. So I got that cash out early, and you were like, hey, I got these deals. I got, maybe she'll sell you 4 of them. I'm like, okay. I looked at 4 or 5 of them, and I was like, okay, I want a couple of these or whatever. And I'm like, man, what can I get them for? He's like, well, you can't get into them. I was like, well, man, I can't walk them into the property. Like, I can't pay full price. He's like, all right, cool. We'll figure it out. Blah blah. So we got those houses for $16,500 each. Yeah. So it was 2 of them. But long story short, I'm renting them for $1,350 now.
Wow.
Right. And that's probably still on the market. Yeah. So I'm renting them for $1,350. I did do a cash out refi because I'm a burst strategy guy. So I did a cash out refi about 3 years ago. Pulled $100,000 from both of them.
Whoa.
Pulled $100,000 from both of them. So to bring it a little bit home, that 21 unit complex that you toured, I bought that with the $200,000 from the 2 deals.
So why is this important? I was in college and I took 2 classes, finance and accounting, both of which I got a D in. So most of the things that I've learned in terms of finance, I had to learn on the fly. And I remember that I couldn't understand what's the difference between a balance sheet and income statement, and how could a company that had $1 million on their income statement not be a profitable company, or how could their value be lessened? And so let me explain it this way. Let's say you have a company that made $1 million in income and had $500,000 in expenses. No, let's change that. Let's say they did $2 million in income and had $500,000 in expenses. That means their net revenue was $1.5 million. Will you want that company? Well, the question is maybe, but that only shows one part of the picture. It shows you what their income and expenses was during that time period. Now, let's say if you look at their balance sheet and it shows that they have $5,000 in the bank, $25,000 in receivables. So that means their assets is only $30,000. But on their books, they have a bank loan for $1 million, So now when you look at the value of that company, even though they have a substantial positive net revenue during a time period, the value of that company is negative because of when you look at the numbers on the balance sheet. So both of them are very important, depending upon who you are. If you're a bank, you want to see both of those. Really, everybody's going to want to see both of them. But a bank is more concerned about your capacity to repay. So they want to know what cash is coming in. But they also want to know, who else do you owe money? What's your financial position? Because that's going to give them a better understanding of your capacity to repay.
Man, oh man, you have concluded our 5-part masterclass on real estate investing. So I know that you have a solid foundation, and I'm pretty confident that you'll be on your path to wealth and riches. I would also like to suggest on the Black Money Tree Network, we have several interviews with notable real estate investors such as Chris Senegal, Onaje Barnes, Corey Mildrow. I've talked about OJ before. I started with him. He bought 1 single family house and now he's on his 3rd apartment complex. And then there's Corey Mildrow. He's a guy that OJ mentored. He has almost 1,000 doors in the Dallas area. And we've all heard of the legend, Mr. Chris Senegal, who's buying back the block. Check out those episodes on the Black Money Tree Podcast Network, as well as Ron DeVoe. He owns a real estate company in Atlanta. He has 2 thought-provoking interviews that I think will help you on your path to real estate riches. But before you go, click the like, subscribe, and share the wealth. And if you want to book a personal consultation, I'm here to help you. Click the link in the description. Until then, here's to your real estate riches.